Micromaster!
Brought to you by supporters who probably have better taste than this schmuck.
When the Siege Micromasters first released, there was one main criticism. It was only 2 per pack, not 4. People were pretty pissed off by this. They wanted the full lineups and it didn't seem like Hasbro was going to give them to them. What an outrage! Except there was one release that could provide a solution for such. The Target's 10 pack. We didn't know what this was going to be until it was officially revealed. We only had a Target listing to go off. We knew it had 10 Micromasters in it and we knew the price, but we didn't really know what was in it, so many people speculated, myself included, that it would include the other members of the sets. And that was partially right. There was one member in that set that lined up with one of the already released packs, but the rest were just randoms. Random homages here, random fill-ins there, it was all a bit of a hodgepodge. But a hodgepodge doesn't necessarily have to be bad. I mean, FunPub has done that for years. Random fellows thrown together with very haphazard themes, and they turned out to be some of the most beloved packs in Transformers history. So if they can do it, what's to stop Hasbro from doing the same? Well, let's take a gander, shall we? Now, before we properly start, I do have to clarify a couple of things. This is a big, beefy set, but it's a big, beefy set of figures I've pretty much covered in the past. I've got 2 whole videos. Wait, that's not right. Ah, that's better. I've got 2 whole videos discussing all of these molds already, and I've discussed them in great detail, so there's not really much point repeating myself for certain bits of information. As such, I will not be going over the transformation, the articulation, the sizes, or the size comparisons. It's a bit pointless since all the dimensions of all the figures are already up in previous videos, so I don't want to cover ground that I've already covered before. Now I'm going to go through these in chronological order, and surprisingly there is actually a chronological order. The interesting thing is the entire box isn't given a single number. Each duo in the set is given its own War for Cybertron code. For example, these 2 are WFC S58, and this pack goes all the way up to 62 in numbering. So I guess doing it in chronological order kind of makes sense since it doesn't really matter which order we do them in. So I suppose we should start with Road Police. Now, most of these figures are homages to other characters. In this case, Road Police is one of the members of the 6 Turbo team. I don't have the original to compare to, but I do have an absolutely awful bootleg of it with the green paint that's chipping like a motherfucker. So you can kind of see what the original mold looks like, but let's get that off the screen, it's disgusting. Of course, instead of being done in black, it's done in white, so I guess it can hide its corruption a bit better. One thing to note is that I have applied repro labels to this entire set. It's not one of my favorite sets because it's not one of the most intense ones. Definitely a little more laid back than some of the ones I've covered in the past, in the top 10 video that is, but it gets the job done. Basically, it's just Stakeout in white. It's basically that. And as such, it can probably double as a Holly, especially since it follows a similar color scheme to Holly. But of course, diehard fans of Holly, which do exist, I've noticed, they're pretty strict about what classifies as a Holly. They'll call Stakeout Holly, but they won't call this Holly, and then they'll insist you get the HasLab sets. Now you'll notice that the back windows are colored here and here, but those are actually the repro labels, because on this version, they kind of missed them, which is a bit of a bummer. Especially since they were fully painted in on Stakeout here. Seems like a bit of a step down, like you think with a 10-pack they could stretch the budget a bit, but apparently not. That's my only really gripe with this fella. It's a simple white police car that does its job, possibly, I suppose. Not really much to talk about here. Wheelblaze is interesting, though. And I don't just mean because the original was one of the worst Micromasters they've ever put out. Oh no. It's interesting because of his conception. Wheelblaze is a G1 homage to a character from the Metro Squad. Well, I say Metro Squad, but really it's just half of that. That's all that is a homage to. Yep, kind of ditched Roadburner because the combiners wouldn't be a thing until Wave 5. It's an interesting release to say the least. It's clearly one of the filler pieces that was just kind of put in there to fill the box. Not one that they really wanted to get across. That's just the feeling I get from the set. But surprisingly, it's okay. It's still not great, but I feel the one thing that really puts it over the original Red Heat is the window layout. They've gone back to the same layout that they used on Big Shot, which is greatly appreciated. And you've still got the side windows there, which works wonderfully, and you've still got a lot of the detail here. The detail doesn't get as lost in the red either, although the latter still sucks, so there's not much to do there. Funny thing, you got the port at the back there for the gun mode, and I do recall people thinking about making an add-on Roadburner to combine with him. Of course, such was eventually rendered completely pointless when we got a complete Metro Squad homage right there. Well, I say complete, but really it's just 1/3 of it, but you get the point. So this figure was pretty much made obsolete, as was the whole set, really. I mean, you've got one part of a 16 that never combines that was used as a Holly, but now doesn't need to be because of the HasLab sets, and you've got one part of of a combiner that doesn't need to exist because we've got the combiner in full in one of these selects packages. I know it wasn't selects, it was Galactic Odyssey, but same thing. So this set definitely feels like filler, not off to a great start. Well, the vehicle modes are fine though. These aren't bad in any way, and I do think this is a much better looking vehicle than Red Heat. I still prefer Stakeout to Road Police though. The black just looks much sexier on that. Although I probably shouldn't be calling police officers sexy. That being said, there is one thing that they massively fixed over the original release, and I will absolutely give them credit for. The bits no longer pop off. They are completely solid. They actually tweaked the tolerances ever so slightly. It's not as good on Road Police here, but it is noticeable. Way more noticeable on Wheelblaze though. I can actually fold these out without any modification and they function absolutely fine. Just works immensely well. Like, Jesus, that's great. That's fantastic. And in robot mode, these seem a little bit dumb, but ultimately they're done okay. Like, you can tell they've definitely tried to come up with something at the last minute in terms of decos for these. But what we have here, it works mostly. Now, of course, with Road Police, it's not looking as good in this mode because it's just a barrage of white plastic. Definitely help with the blue chest, but not to the extent that I'd like. Of course, it's not as bad with the repro labels that I've put on, but out of the box, oof, it looks pretty rough. I would 100% say that Stakeout is the better of the two, with black, white, and blue on show. Whereas this one's really just white and blue and it doesn't look that great. Still, it'll do in a pinch. Again, it's a bit of a filler piece for the set, but it'll do. And again, if you're a Holly fan, it works okay as a stand-in because it's basically using the Road Police color scheme on a Stakeout body, which is ironically almost what the cartoon design looks like, because the cartoon design changed the color scheme from the toy. The original Holly toy is literally just Stakeout, that's basically it. Of course, no Holly fan will ever admit it, and they'll argue with you to the end, but I guess that's the case. Aside from that, it's really just the same problems as the original. Falls over pretty easily. Backpack's big, but that's okay. It's just mainly the heel supports. I find this one stands a little bit better. Probably because the hips are much stronger on this one, or maybe just because I haven't, you know, facing forward in this shot. But I don't know, it's a lot easier to stand, I've found. The rest is just fine though. Not great, not terrible. Wheelblaze though. Oh my God, this looks so ridiculously stupid and I love it. Like, this is not a good looking robot mode by any means. You've got white clashing with the yellow, clashing with the blue chest and the blue head. Ew. Just does not look good at all. Like, okay, I can sort of see what they've gone for because they've tried to get the yellow and the gray there, but because of the white, it doesn't really match up, and also the yellow is a completely different shade. So I get what they're trying to do, but it just does not succeed at all. Especially with that face. It looks like they've got two shades of blue there, but the shades don't line up, and the original had the aqua face. It just doesn't work. I'm okay with them reusing the head because it's a redeco, and even if it doesn't work, it's fine, but this is just not the way to go about it. Yeah, you can tell right off the bat, the Earthrise Galactic Odyssey version looks infinitely better. With the grey thighs, with the extra aqua, they've even added more aqua in the chest. It just looks so much better. But of course, this is what we had for the time, and you know what? Yes, he doesn't look that great, but I just love how shit he looks. It's one of those completely bonkers designs that makes no sense. Kind of like Big Blade, the KO of Iron Factory Windblade. It looks really, really awful, but it's just so funny. I can't hate it. One thing I will give him credit for, he stands really, really well because they have fixed the tolerances in the hips, the ones that Red Heat kind of up. So yeah, it's good. Works fine. As a heads up, these things in the chest are repro labels. The original doesn't look like that, but yeah, most part does the job. If you want something that looks gaudy and awful, like one of those classic bullshit G1 figures, it'll do you just fine. So ultimately, I can't get too mad at these. Yes, they are filler. Not a great start to the set if you're going in chronological order. They're just kind of there to get something out of this set so that they can say, hey, we redecoed it, hooray for that. But I love how brazen they are. I love how unapologetic their shittiness is. Well, they're not shitty. They're a definite step up from the originals just because they are far more solid. But their colors are naff. There's just no getting around it. And that's okay. I kind of like them like that. Of course, the gun mode, well, it stinks, but we already knew that. The original gun mode also was terrible. What do you expect? None of these are any good. Anywho, on to WFC S59. Groundshaker and Over Air, or Airwave, I suppose. And this is a really weird set. Don't get me wrong, these look gorgeous. They are a massive step up from the Airstrike Patrol. But in terms of how they were used and why they were used, it is bonkers. Groundshaker out of the two definitely makes more sense. Here's, of course, a redeco of Whisper. That was the same for the G1 cartridge. cartoon, so it makes perfect sense here. And can I just say, while I love black and purple on Decepticons, this Autobot color scheme and all this green and yellow, it is so sexy. This is an absolutely lush color scheme. Now again, we got repro labels here and here, but even in the stock configuration, it looks great. And it really allows this jet to come into its own. The original was just kind of okay, I suppose, but this looks fantastic. Of course, a lot of these things are roughly the same, like reimagining the wings here as an engine block and all that kind of stuff back there. So you can have the blast effect port and you can have these combined. And you've still got the undercarriage, which is perfectly fine, but in terms of jets, this is amazing. It's just a fantastic little jet mode right here. Of course, this is an Autobot set, which does bring up some problems with Airwave here. Of course, Airwave has been renamed as Over-Air for copyright reasons, but that's not his main problem. You'll notice that I have added the Decepticon symbol. That is because in this set, they have decided to make both of these Autobots so they can combine with each other. Bit of a weird decision, but I can see where they're coming from. In the Japanese continuity, Over-Air, which was his name in the Japanese continuity, he was an Autobot. So they're kind of using that as justification. It's not that they're doing that to homage the Japanese version. They're doing that so that this set makes sense. They're pulling from lore so that they can kind of justify this set's existence. One small problem though. The very next year, we did actually get a fully sized Airwave base, reimagined as a modulator for the Earthrise line, so he actually had his own robot mode, but fully designed to scale with the Siege and Earthrise Micromasters. And I think they knew this at the time. Why do I say that? Because the only two base companions were Ironworks and Airwave, which just so happened to be the two figures they released in the main series of Earthrise. The other two, Hothouse and Grease Pit, were select releases. They were redecos of this. So they focused on the two main ones that would be seen at regular retail. That's why I kind of think they knew they were going to do this ahead of time. I mean, it takes time to design toys. It's a perfectly reasonable hypothesis that they knew about Airwave when they decided to make this redeco. Because of that, you will probably have to put some form of repro label on this. Even if it's not the full set, at least a faction sticker to replace it. Now with that said, I love the scale here. I mean, it's completely out of scale, don't get me wrong, but just seeing this here to kind of fly off the runway, it is a perfect little companion piece. And also, I love the modulators. I think they were the best use of the parts forming gimmick in the War for Cybertron line. I didn't really like Earthrise that much, but these guys were one of the high points. So hey, if you want to get an Airwave Micromaster to fit on your Airwave base, this 10-pack will do you just fine. Of course, as their own thing, they're still one of the best two out of the set, in vehicle mode at least. I mean, Airwave especially looks absolutely lush, even without repro labels. If you want to get these on their own, they'll probably do you quite well, although I'm not sure about the aftermarket state of these. Tracking down one of these sets can be a little bit difficult. Oh, and I guess I should compare to the G1 original since I have that as well. I reckon the new one looks much better, even if it doesn't look very much like the G1 original in terms of its profile. Just the detail really shines on this newer version. That they've done a bang-up job here. Also better than Stormcloud, just absolutely knocks it out of the park in comparison to Stormcloud. Great. And much like the vehicle modes, the robot modes just take the airstrike patrol and add some much needed color. Groundshaker especially, he looks gorgeous. You've gone from basically nothing but a sea of black to now you've got turquoise and you've got silver and you got the green legs. They've used the mold color breakup exceptionally well. And now you can see where some of the paint went as well, because they went nuts on the paint with the chest here. Jesus. Of course, it's pretty much the same tooling as the Airstrike Patrol. Nothing really new there, but that's fine. But Airwave, I really like Airwave. That is a beautiful robot mode. Especially now that you can see all of that lovely detail that was missing on Stormcloud. Jesus, it looks great. The chest especially, I can now make out every rivet, every crevice, every little detail. Looks fantastic. Now, truth be told, a lot of this fantastic stuff comes from the fact they deviated heavily from the original. Like these two, they barely look alike, aside from color differences, although part of that's probably due to yellowing over the years. The chest coloration is completely different with extra yellow, and they're using blue instead of purple. And you've got more breakup here, just because it's a redeco and they can't really do much about that anyway. But I really love the way they did this. This shows what is possible when you take deviations from the G1 design. When you don't just try to do everything like the G1 toy, when you actually try to do something new and original. Of course, some of it does come from the original. For example, the white chest is actually fully painted under green plastic so that it kind of fits with Groundshaker. But still, what they've done here is amazing. And that's one of the reasons I love this set. They've taken what used to be a greatly tooled but mediocrely colored set and have made it amazing. Probably one of my favorite out of the bunch because it feels like it has purpose. Yes, it's fighting against some of the tooling decisions made for the Airstrike Patrol team, but it still does a fantastic job. The only real complaint I can think of is, well, once again, the sword looks like an oversized knife. But that's to be expected because that was the same with the Airstrike Patrol as well. Bit of a shame, would have been fantastic to get a truly amazing sword and really seal the set together, but it is what it is. You still get great robot modes and great jet modes. And now we get to WFC S60 Ricon and Irontread. Irontread, of course, being a trademarked Ironworks. Yes, they didn't really have the trademark until Earthrise, and they just kind of had to put this out there before they could get it, but it does the job just well enough, I suppose. But this set is a little bit weird. It's clear they wanted to get Ironworks out on the market to work with the larger fellow. As such, Ricon over here is a completely original character. One of the two in this set, matter of fact. The name apparently derives from Reconstruction, which Repro Labels is referenced on him right there, which is one of the little deco choices with the original G1 toy, which I don't have, but oh well. But it's clear they pulled this out of their ass so they could get Ironworks to work in this set. And there's some things that are amazing and some things that are a bit wibbly. For starters, the colors look amazing on this. It finally gives us some character. What they did with this set to high jump is essentially what the previous ones did to the Airstrike Patrol. Take a somewhat boring design and really bring it to life. Like this one, it's just kind of nothing. It's good that they referenced the hinge there with that kind of top stuff there, but that's about it. Little red picked out there, but nothing special. In this red though, everything looks much more luscious. A lot of the details pop much more, and they've still kept some decent paint there. Of course, now that they've got the silver up there, they weren't able to paint those back windows there, so those are Repro Labels. That's a bit of a bummer, but I really like that they have the little silver sunroof there. It really brings this to life. And as far as I can gather, I think the back windows are Repro Labels. I don't think they painted those, but I'll have to check at some point. Aside from that, it's much of a muchness. It's basically high jump, but in red, and that does work in its favor. I can see a lot of the details better. It just looks more aesthetically pleasing. Funny what new deco can do to a somewhat disappointing toy. Ironworks, though, wasn't based on a kind of disappointing toy. The original was a redeco of Powertrain, and so is this new version. And I think it does the job well enough. Again, you've still got a lot of the issues, such as the fake wheels back there kind of getting stuck, and the exposed hinges at the back, but it does fine. Interestingly, they've gone for a few different deco choices compared to Powertrain. In fact, let's bring him in. So you can see here, Powertrain only painted the front there, whereas Ironworks painted the whole grille and the bumper. Bit of a nice thing to differentiate the two, I suppose. Unfortunately, they did sacrifice a few places. This was painted black on the original, whereas that's a Repro Label, a red Repro Label. And also that was painted black on the original, whereas that's also a red Repro Label, so they did miss out on a few things. But it is nice that they kept the paint at the back there. This one done in orange, this one done in blue. That's a very nice touch. And they also kept the little smokestack there. So they are putting in a bit of effort. They do have to do some budget reallocation for the sake of it, but looks good, looks good. Of course, one question remains. How does he look with the Earthrise version of Ironworks? And honestly, I think this is a fantastic companion piece. If you love Ironworks from Earthrise, you should get Ironworks from Siege in some capacity, whether buying the whole set or just buying him on his own. It is a wonderful little addition that really brings the thing together, especially with one little teeny weeny thing this guy can do. You can actually half transform the gun mode so that this can function as its own little pistol. And as its own little pistol on its own without anything else, just kind of as a backwards truck, it's a really neat addition that makes it feel like it was always meant to be a part of this set, even ignoring Ricon's existence, which you can kind of do. Of course, the combination sucks on these two anyway. It's just the same old nonsense. But this is great. Of course, I guess I should show you what the combination looks like for the gun, and yeah, this is just terrible. Like, sweet Jesus, I don't even... Why the f do they even make these? It's just f***ing terrible. Fortunately, the robot modes actually turn out pretty sweet. Like these two, they both have some great details on show, and the colors really make them pop, especially on Ricon. Ricon manages to take a pretty boring base mold and turn it into something truly special. But the most interesting thing about this is that these aren't actually just plain old redecos. If you push these back and bring in the original, you'll quickly find out these are retools. Yes, these have been redone from the chest and the head. So they've wanted to give these a bit of a different flavor. I'm not sure if that was the case with the G1 versions. I'll have to look that up and put that in the video, but honestly, it's a 50-50 in this. Ricon easily does better with his new chest and head, because this, with Powertrain, just looked really bad. Trying to replicate something from a G1 toy, but doing it really, really poorly for the sake of that blasted gun gimmick. But when it comes to Ironworks, I think it's a bit of a step down. I like the visored face, but the kind of spikes on the ears there just look way better, and that chest is really, really neat. But they both do a pretty good job. Now, as his own thing though, Ricon is pretty good. Of course, you do lose a bit of the stuff, like you have to repro label the gas canister there. That's not a thing on this version. But overall, in this red plastic, it does look a lot better. Unfortunately, he's got all the problems of the original figure, like those blasted wheels off the sides of the hands, and also this backpack that really likes to make him fall over. But on the whole, it's really, really does look better. However, he does feel a bit pulled out of the designer's arse at the last minute just to justify Ironworks' existence, and Ironworks does a fantastic job. You can tell he was the priority of the set, with all of his lovely retooling and lovely paint on his chest. Just overall, a much better looking figure, even without the repro labels on the legs. They wanted to make an Ironworks to go with Earthrise, and they did a bang up job. But ultimately, you'll probably end up finding Ricon pretty neat as well. It's a solid set right here. We all know what the set is really for out of the two. We all know the real purpose of said set. But it's a solid addition, I suppose. Anyway, it's back to the jets again with WFC S61. Nightflight and Slyhopper, renamed as Slyhopper. Yeah, I prefer the original name, so I guess I'll stick with that. This set makes a lot more sense. The original Slyhopper was a redeco of Stormcloud, so redoing this one doesn't really seem like that much of a stretch. And this one, well, it's not the most obvious choice, but you can kind of see some of the Nightflight DNA in there to begin with, so it's not too much of a stretch. That being said, Nightflight does look pretty good as he does now with all of the repro labels applied, but you want to see what he looks like stock? Oh dear. Yeah, this guy is just a big white plank of nothing, and it's a bit of a shame. Now, to be fair, the original was a big white plank of nothing, or rather a big grey plank of nothing. This one's more of an off-white, whereas this one's a grey, and no, it's not yellowing. You can't yellow white down to grey, it doesn't work like that. But yeah, you can see a bit more of the amalgamation in there that these Micromasters love to do. I think I slightly prefer the old one just by personal preference, but the tooling here is great. It's just the same problem as the other Airstrike Patrol figures. The colors aren't the best, even more so than the retail ones. You'll notice all the kind of color breakup goes into the robot mode, but here, not the best. And that's because Slyhopper took all of the paint. F me, look at that just wow. Wow, that's not repro labels, that is full-on paint. Aqua, silver, purple on the nose cone. Yeah, some of these on the side are repro labels, but you don't really notice it. Not as much as the stock over here. Oh god, that's great. And they've got turquoise over here. Jesus, they went nuts on the paint. I can see why poor old Nightflight lost a lot of it, because this guy went absolutely nuts with every thing. And yeah, don't get me wrong, I love Airwave, but hell, this has to be my favorite Micromaster of the entire 10. Just the absolute beauty of this thing. Jesus! It's not often that it even outclasses the original G1 toy. Like, the turquoise looks much more lush than the green, as does the purple, and the stickers don't look as vibrant as the paint in here. Oh man, the way they've referenced the stickers in the paint just looks absolutely astonishing. Yeah, get this G1 shit out of here. We got a king of the Micromasters right there. I don't know what to say, just, it's amazing. If they could make a helicopter buddy for him to go with, it would be basically perfect. Also, the repro label set has added thrusters to the back. I just thought that was humorous. Tee-hee! And essentially, it's the same thing in robot mode. Nightflight looks okay, albeit a bit lacking in colors, whereas Slyhopper just looks amazing. Now, he might look okay with the way the wings work and the chest, but that big silver piece there is actually a big repro label, and the wings have been repro labeled as well. They were just plain red on the original. Out of the box, poor Nightflight looks pretty sad. He is a very nice companion piece to the other figures, and if you're a massive fan of the Airstrike Patrol, then he'll probably do just fine. But I just can't find anything amazing to say about him. But Slyhopper, oh god, so beautiful, so beautiful! With that fantastic turquoise on show again, but with picked out silver separate from all that. Even paints on the feet. Jesus, that turquoise was stock applied, not a repro label. Christ. It's just a fantastic Micromaster. No joke, after doing this video, I'm kind of regretting using hyperdrive for the size comparisons for these kinds of things. I should have used Slyhopper. Ah well, I guess there's always 2022. Much like the other sets, the only main issue that really could cause any problems with the figure is that the sword, you know, just looks like an oversized knife again. I guess it looks better on Legends figures like old Skybite over here, but it's still just not proportioned well. Although I will give credit where credit is due, this one is surprisingly cohesive in its color scheme. Obviously not as cohesive as the regular Air Strike Patrol because that's all the same colors, but with all the turquoise tying the thing together, well actually wait, that's probably with the repro labels. Yeah, the repro labels are probably doing that. On second thoughts, I take that back. Cut to the next one! Finally, we get to WFC S61, Cratermaker, and Fireline. Early in the video, I said that there were 2 original characters in this lineup, but it turns out I was mistaken. Essentially, this is Powerbomb and Gunlift from the Zone series, but I guess they didn't have the rights to it and had to come up with another name. My mistake, I apologize. But moving on, these 2 look absolutely stunning. These new colors on show here, oh man, they're just something else. Samus's Powerbomb just looks fantastic in blue, just truly fantastic. You retain all of the red paint on the missiles there. They made sure to paint those in when they could have just left them. Yeah, he does have less paint overall in this vehicle mode, probably to make up for Gunlift's paint, but still, in this blue, it just looks gorgeous. And of course, you can get the repro labels if you want extra colors there, if you want. He's got the same issues as Flak because the proportions on the turret are completely bonkers thanks to the robot mode, and they never quite sit flush, so it kind of feels more like a Q transformer. But these colors really help you distract this. This is one of the best decos on a Micromaster, bar none. Same applies to Gunlift. Like, I never thought that brown and green on an artillery vehicle like this would work well, but it does. It's weird, but it stands out and it does a great job. The paint has been reallocated a bit. You've got a silver window here, but you don't get any there, and sadly repro labels didn't seem to fill it in. Bit of a bummer there, but you do get green parts on the lights here. That really works to pick it out. And all of the gray parts have now been done in black, and my word, that just looks gorgeous. And of course, you've got the rotating turret that still works great. And in this green, Jesus, that is just wow. Of course, a few people might be mad about these 2. Powerbomb and Gunlift were Autobots in Zone, but these 2 are Decepticons. I'm guessing it's because we already had an Autobot version of this team and they wanted a Decepticon version. There were Autobot repro label replacements for this, but I never ended up using them because it just never bothered me. But I know it will piss off a few people, and I guess you can get the repro labels for that, or just use faction stickers. But either way, this set looks amazing, and it carries over all the fantastic details from the original. There's not a lot to complain about here. And in robot mode, surprisingly, we get a bit of retooling again. Powerbomb has a completely different head to the original. In fact, just bringing it in for a comparison, I think it's not better per se, but it's still just as good. Does a great job spicing things up, but overall, I think the colors do work better here. Yeah, the head might be the same, but the colors in general, just Jesus. And this one too, these colors are absolutely lush. With Powerbomb, now that the chest is cast in white plastic as opposed to gray, you can actually see the detail a lot better, and it comes across really, really well. And he no longer has a giant diaper. Yeah, it's more like a giant G-string now, but hey, it's a bit better, I suppose. Again, not one to kink shame, just one to paint shame. The black plastic instead of the gray everywhere else also does a fantastic job of bringing this to life. Makes this feel mean as f. Although the colors have nothing on Fireline, I am absolutely blown away. And yeah, the repro labels do help a lot, but just the green chest and the red waist and just everything else. The black accents, and even the fact that they used the Red Heat's head instead of the regular mushed big shot one, it just works better here. And you got the breakup on the knees thanks to the lights, and it's still got the great proportions, and it's still got the great functionality. Honestly, there's not a lot to complain about over here. I think if I had to pick an individual Micromaster, Slyhopper would probably be the best, but if I had to pick a team, these 2, they just demolish everything else. A fantastic way to close out the team. And of course, what better way to cap this off than with an actually good combined weapon mode. Admittedly, it doesn't look as good as the Battle Patrol because the colors don't match up as solidly, but hey, the tooling functions. More so than any other figures from this 10-pack, and more so than any other figures from the first 3 waves. In fact, the only one in the trilogy I think that really beats it would be the Battle Squad, but in general, it's a fantastic duo. Again, Slyhopper is my favorite individual figure, but these two take the cake hands down and are a fantastic way to conclude things. There are 2 reasons why you would buy this set, and both are perfectly valid. The first is to pair up members with the existing modulators. When you have them paired up, it is immensely fun. I can't recommend that enough. aside from the prices on the aftermarket, because they're just terrible. Oh, I wish people would stop overcharging for exclusives. Like, other people want them too. It's not just about your own pockets. The second reason is just to bolster the ranks of your Micromaster lineup. Collecting the whole Micromaster lineup is a lot of fun. There's not that many stinkers on the whole, so collecting these for completionist reasons is also pretty fun. I can't really think of any members in this set that really reach the levels of bad that other Micromasters have. At worst, they're confusing but ultimately fine, and at best, they are truly brilliant. This set is very hard to find on the aftermarket, but if this review has intrigued you, go for it. Wait for a good deal, pick it up, and I promise you won't be disappointed. Once again, Hashtag have used the Micromaster lineup as a wonderful medium for creativity. Can't say the same for tomorrow's review though, because a lot of it is a bit samey. We're going from Micromasters to Battle Masters, so until then, catch you later.